sing.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be a fun one. Because to me, there's hardly a more retro-futuristic idea than the robot. In particular, domestic helper robots in the home, something as a kid I thought for sure we'd have by now. And no, app-connected plastic circles that vacuum and mop don't count, as helpful as they are. I'm talking bots like the Omnibot 2000 here. A 26-inch tall droid that to a degree can speak, play music, bring you drinks, and just generally looks like a robot, you know? The kind popularized decades ago in sci-fi movies, which back then featured all manner of automaton companions. And for a time, the fantasy of having your own personal R2-D2 was seemingly becoming more realistic due to the growing personal robot market. By the mid-1980s, a small army of robotic minions were available for sale, ranging in price from $30 to $3,000 and beyond, most of which can be found on the excellent website theoldrobots.com, a key source for information in this video and a wonderful time sink if you enjoy these lovable gizmos. It's how I discovered the Crackbot exists, and my life is better for it. But yeah, in hindsight, the 1980s personal robot companion concept was mostly marketing hype. A passing fad propelled by the starry-eyed wishes of children and the corporations aiming to capitalize on them. And by the time folks got these robots home, the limitations were clear, and the idea was always better than the execution. But let's forget all that for a moment and step back in time to 1985. Because the robot propaganda machine was still in high gear, with publicity stunts, marketing campaigns, and conventions all pushing one droid-like companion or another, along with the idea that robots weren't some far-off pipe dream, but legitimately the future. By the year 2000, there'll be a robot in everybody's garage, according to the Tomy Corporation in '85. Going on to say, the presence of a robot in every home is no longer science fiction, but something that will occur in the not-too-distant future. And you know, in September 1985, when they made those statements, it wasn't entirely without merit. Tomy expected to sell $80 million worth of toy robots that year alone, with interest projected to remain strong throughout the coming holiday season, saying, "We'll be able to sell all we make. We've already sold more robots than have sold in the entire history of robotics." And a chunk of sales came from today's video focus, the Tomy Omnibot 2000, model 5405. A personal home robot costing $499 US upon its introduction in 1985. Or thereabouts, it could be found for $300 or less by the end of the year. Either way, a sizable fee when adjusted for inflation, but as Tomy themselves put it, it was only expensive for a toy. It was inexpensive for a robot. And Omnibot 2K was the top of the range, costing $200 more than the original Omnibot, the 5402 model from 1984. Other than the serving capabilities and overall size, they were very similar machines underneath, marketed as toy robots for entertaining, and a step up from the usual robot-inspired playthings in the toy aisle, but also in a category below more serious computer-programmable educational robots, like the $1,000 Topo by Androbot or the $2,000 Heathkit Hero. Unlike those, Tomy Omnibots had no internal computer, instead relying on a radio remote control transmitting tones that could be recorded to audio cassette tapes and played back to re-perform actions. Something we'll absolutely demonstrate in a bit, but for now, we've got the full 1985 experience right here. An Omnibot 2000 still sealed in its box. A box within a box, actually. It arrived still inside the original shipping box from Tomy US in Carson, California. I love that classic FedEx sticker too, full-on Federal Express formality. Yeah, I gotta give a huge thanks to LGR viewer Ernest Klein for making this happen. He had a self-admitted fixation on these growing up in the 80s and has purchased several, including this new one. But instead of opening it himself, he reached out and asked if I'd like to share the experience on LGR. Having been curious about these myself and wanting to cover one for years, I was elated to accept, and Ernie shipped it over, along with a copy of the anthology book Robot Uprisings by Dan Wilson, featuring a short story by Ernie himself titled The Omnibot Incident. The tale of a boy in 1986 who receives a seemingly normal Omnibot 2000 for Christmas, only to find that it seems to be driven by an artificial intelligence that makes the bot go off the rails. In between about 150 pop culture references, imagine that. But that's enough preamble. Let's unleash this Omnibot from its styrofoam prison. First up inside the box is this bag of instructions, paperwork, and assorted extra goodies, followed by this black and red piece of cardboard, intended as a home base for the robot, though entirely optional. And now for the main attraction, looking like a mechanical mummy packed within a polystyrene sarcophagus. Oh, man. Would you look at that? Unused and untouched for nearly 40 years. I kind of feel bad for the guy. But at long last, Omnibot 2000 can say hello to the world. It's wild seeing one that looks absolutely perfect, with none of the usual dirt, scratches, and scuffs that befall every Omnibot that's had even a smidge of use. The one noticeable flaw was the head being slightly disconnected, but after loosening a screw and snapping that back into place, it was fine. Then lastly, we have the remote control, motorized serving tray, and DC power adapter. That being a 6-volt 300 mA center negative thing for charging the main motor battery. A battery that also powers the tape deck and the serving tray attachment, while the remote control, or master control unit as it's called, requires 4 AA batteries of its own. As does the chest-mounted clock and LCD with its control panel, that needs 2 more AA batteries installed behind a panel around back. This is also where the main battery gets installed, as well as the fuse, and both are worth testing before use. The original Omnibot 2K battery may still function, but it's simply not a good idea to run old lead-acid batteries like this. Thankfully, it's a typical kind of 6-volt sealed lead-acid battery still made today. All you need is one with the right terminal adapter, and that's thankfully easy to find. And the fuse is a standard 3AG 5-amp deal, which still tested as working here, but I have plenty of extras just in case. You can't have too many fuses, dang it! As for the goodie bag, the first thing I noticed was this plastic bit, a tiny screwdriver for making tiny adjustments to tiny knobs. Next is a set of Omnibot Omni add-ons sold by Tomy with tracer tape, infrared, supersonic, and photosensor augmentations available for between $20 and $50 each. None of which I have, sadly, but would connect to the hidden accessory interface panel along the rear bottom half of the Omnibot. Of course, there's also the expected warranty registration card, along with an update stating this improved version of the bot no longer needs steering adjustments, as well as saying, hey, it's also kinda limited and might go haywire since radio frequency interference is a constant problem. Then there's the instruction manual, a 48-page black and white booklet packed with some seriously frameable line art illustrations chronicling all the info needed to set up, control, and program the bot to do your 1980s bidding. And other than a succinct spare parts order form tucked in there, that's everything included with the Omnibot 2K in 1985, and what a thrilling selection of goodies this is, man. Simply imagining all this out on the table as a youngin' is exciting. Even for me, having grown up in the 90s, this still would have been incredible to have. And now that I do, well, the only question is, does it still work? And after leaving it plugged in to charge overnight for the suggested 12 hours, the answer is partially. First, the cassette deck is dead, and that's completely expected. Practically zero mid-80s tape decks still function, not without maintenance to gears, belts, lubrication, pinch rollers, playback heads, and such. That stuff deteriorates no matter what, and particularly the belts in this case. And second, there are the motors and gears, which are well known for stiffening up and breaking on first use, or even if never used. Here, the gears underneath propelling the wheels had seized up, and the motorized arm didn't move at all, only rotating the hand grips. Thankfully, the wheels eventually worked after taking off the bottom, adding some fresh lube, and gently coaxing things to move. But the cassette deck and the arm, that enters trickier territory. The cassette mechs are tucked away behind components requiring more of a teardown, and while the arm detaches easily, looking online at what's inside, yeah, I'd rather send it off to an expert for proper repair. Plus, the robot doesn't even play its startup sound either, so perhaps there's something electronically wrong too, this thing just needs some fixin'. In the meantime, Mr. Klein straight up sent another bot to borrow for this video. This one being well used, but functional before shipping, so let's see how it fares. Nice. Oh, the sounds of success. And I gotta say, it's such an oddly childlike place that I'm put in anytime I see a vintage robot come to life, so to speak. Just growing up on a steady diet of movies, TV, and video games featuring robots. I guess it really did a number on my psyche. So, this is so cool to see working. And this one in particular with those glowing yellow-orange eyes that you can turn on and off like that. It's just, I don't know, the fact that it doesn't really have a face exactly compared to other Tomy bots like the Heroid, for example, which has a more explicit set of humanoid features. It's also not a rolling trash can like Heathkit Heroes were, which don't get me wrong, I love those too. All 80s robots deserve love, but the Omnibot 2000 hits a sweet spot for me. It's that anthropomorphic pareidolia effect kind of thing. I find it super charming. Anyway, at this point, the Omnibot is simply awaiting commands. It won't do anything without input. So there are 3 available modes, or really 4 if you count the standby mode here, which only features the current date, time, and alarm, and that can be set to go off at any time, like any given alarm clock. This whole section runs independently from the rest of the robot, but yeah, our 3 main modes are RC, program, and tape. Now, RC mode is remote control, which, of course, lets you control it through the radio remote, operating at a frequency of 49.860 megahertz, at least on units here in the US, which, yes, is utterly trashed with radio interference these days, but mostly still works. Yeah, you can hear that noisy radio interference and just stuff coming through the speaker, but, it does work. Just very, very squeaky, as are pretty much all of these at this point. Controls are all pretty straightforward. You have these 2 D-pads for forward, backward, rotating left and right in place there. Of course, you can press them at the same time to, sort of move around more slowly, but the arm here, which can extend outward and eventually upward, rotates around. We have the finger opening and closing, the head left and right. We can actually change the gear speed, so there it is in the faster one, and there it is slower. Such fine tuning. And this will start and stop the tape if we had one in there. The Omnibot sounds just makes Omnibot sounds. Delightful. And the light, you can turn that on and off manually. Really the only other thing is this microphone that's on there, and this button on the side, which, kind of a walkie-talkie-esque thing, but let me go on the other side of the room. Yeah, again, the interference is just terrible. Everywhere that I've tried this, inside, outside, turning a bunch of devices off, it's just the modern day radio world we live in, I guess. Quick change of scenery is a bit of an aside here. So something I noticed in my research for this thing many times in old articles was that Tomy US specifically re-engineered the Omnibot 2000 from the original Japanese model to work on shag carpeting in North America. The wheels or the low gear or something. But it's also mentioned in the manual that steep inclines, shag, or piled carpets, it just requires more charging. But it doesn't say you can't do it, it just recommends hard level surfaces. But yeah, I'm just curious how it works. So I've got some shag-like carpeting here in my retro room, and it does just fine. It's definitely a bit slower to rotate, but I mean, overall, good stuff. And yeah, that just leaves the tape and program modes, which actually both pertain to the cassette deck here, which does actually have an external microphone input right there if you want to plug one in that way and not rely on the remote controls mic. You have a recording level adjuster right there, but yeah, it's just a normal cassette player recorder actually, and as long as it's in tape mode, you can have it function as any other cassette deck, so you can play regular cassette tapes just fine, and that's what you get. And what's great is the lights for the eyes are sort of like a VU meter volume level. And of course that is just playback, so yeah, I don't know, I love it even just as that. And of course, being that it is just a regular old cassette deck, that also means that you can use adapters such as these cheap Bluetooth cassette adapters. So we'll just turn that on. And then this will let us wirelessly send things to this. And that's how I was able to get it to play that robotic voice intro at the very beginning of the video. It doesn't have any kind of voice synthesizer on its own, but if you play things externally, you can do that. So for example, we could play some YouTube.
For a while, the DC-2 was seemingly popping up everywhere. It was on the cover of National Geographic World. It was a headline feature of retail promotion events at Dayton's department stores in Minnesota.
So, yeah, you can just play anything through there using a Bluetooth adapter or any other kind of cassette adapter. And that brings us to the program mode here. And this is also going to be using the tape, but we're going to want a blank cassette. And we'll put that into record mode here. And now we're free to do things with the remote. And that's that. And now we have that recorded to the tape as a program, a routine that it can perform again. Let's just play back here and see that. That was more or less what I told it to do. It's not, you know, the best because again, we got the radio interference going on. There is the cassette mechanism not being 100%, and you have to mess with volume levels a little bit. But by and large, it does really, really well with that. But you know, I was talking about the Bluetooth adapter letting us do some pretty cool stuff earlier. Well, this also means that we can just play those tones, the audio, directly to this. The reason I know about this is because of this video by Kenny Storm. He figured out all the different audio tones that this uses to do the different movements. So you can just get an app or whatever, any kind of tone generator, and then you can just either play the tones directly through that or record them and put them in like a playback app. So there's forward, and there's backward, left, backward works, the beep doesn't work, left, well, the beep did work there. I don't know, there's some weirdness. for sure. So I still, even if there wasn't weirdness, I still prefer using the remote and programming to cassette, which, by the way, that brings us back to this home base thing and seeing if we can program a more advanced routine. So I'm going to place this down, and this is just a thing that indicates where it's supposed to come back to or start its programmed routine from. It doesn't actually have any sensors. It doesn't know where it is. I'm just going to tape it to the floor there and lets us visually know where to start. All right, so it's on its cardboard base station over there. My attempt here is going to be to get it to come over here, use its little grippy fingers to pick up that glass, turn around and go back to the base station and see if that can be repeated through the recorded tape. Of course, pretty important to get everything set back up where it was, and then we're gonna get the robot back in its default position. We'll just turn it off and then on again, see how it goes. Ooh, okay. I mean, more or less, it's doing what it's supposed to. There's kind of a wow and flutter with the tape, so I think it's coming across in the signal as well that the tape has for the movements, which is interesting. See, it's trying to grip the glass from here. Oh no! Oh no! No, don't come over here. Okay, well, that didn't quite work, did it? Oh, it's still trying to back up onto the little home plate. A lot of that has to do with just the tape wow and flutter. Like I said, that it's not 100%, it does play back, but and plus, like I said, the radio interference is just all sorts of noise coming through that gets in the way of some of the commands. So it's not as smooth as it otherwise could be, and so it's not going as far and not moving quite as much, or sometimes too little. It's not set up for success here in 2024. Okay, I'm gonna try one more time and see if I can just hold up the glass and see if it'll pick it up that way. Yeah, good enough. It's just taking it to the couch. Okay, then you better stop it before it hurts itself. Okay, don't do that. You can really see what the appeal would be of not recording to tape or doing anything from tape and just using like an external application or program to get cleaner signals directly to the Bluetooth adapter or whatever, and just, you know, have all of the different signals in like a long waveform or an app or something like that. Or actually, back in the day, there was a third-party program called Robot Link. And this was some software that you could use on your personal computer to program the routines that way, and then transmit them using an included interface cable. And I think the idea there was to just record onto tape once again, but in theory, you could use that with an FM transmitter or something to do it wirelessly. And by the way, yeah, it is just right-handed. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet. This is the only arm that's motorized. This one right here is posable. So I wasn't too worried about it ramming up against the couch there, but yeah, you just sort of, it's just got a spring-loaded gripper there, and that's where the power goes in around back. These are a bunch of things we just don't have anything to use them with, because these go to some of those accessories, which actually so does this. Not all of them. This was actually a speaker output, and then you get a power pass-through, but yeah, accessories, things, sensor, timer, RC, which I don't believe actually came out, or at least I've never seen them come up for sale or anything. This will let you turn the left and right motors on and off. There is a power kind of kill switch. And down here, you actually have a little storage tray, and I've just got the power in there right now, but you can put anything in there. Oh my goodness. So yeah, with all those attachments that I don't think were ever released, like what else do you do with it other than just kind of screw around? Well, thankfully the manual had some ideas. Yeah, Omnibot ideas and uses split into beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels, like setting up an obstacle course, amplify your voice at presentations, play musical chairs, record a ghost story with scary sounds, create a stir, take Omnibot out for a walk indoors or outdoors. Create a stir? People just get to get up in arms. Intermediate, leave a message for your roommate to clean up their dang room. Teach your parrot to talk. Position Omnibot by your bird and play recorded words over and over again at pre-programmed times during the day. I think parrots can do that on their own. Learning a foreign language, recording different voices at once. There's like a sing-along karaoke type of mode. Use it as a kitchen timer. Advanced levels, have it bring you your tools while you're working on your bike. That would be so much more of a hassle. Like, I really need a screwdriver. I gotta go and spend 10 minutes lining everything up perfectly so we can go and pick that up and bring it to me. Use it to create art or party games. Treat your dog to some snacks, because I'm sure the dog will be just fine with a robot. And then some of these last two. Put your friends out of business. Pour drinks at your lemonade stand. Nobody be able to compete with an Omnibot. Or add some accessories like hats or, for instance, a revolver. I mean... Yeah, they were right. That was a fun use case. However, the more obvious use and selling point is the motorized serving tray, which for good reason is something that Tomy made a big deal about. In fact, its introduction to the US and the press and whatnot was at the 1985 International Personal Robot World Congress, where it pretty much kicked off the event, showing off that it could pour Pepsis from a can, and then it spilled everywhere, immediately leading to this wonderful oops headline. Yeah, that really kind of set the stage for how wonky the motorized tray could be. Neither one of these motorized trays I have fully function anymore, but I kind of got it going. Anyway, you got these two metal contacts that make contact in this sort of VCR looking area here. So that goes in there, makes contact with the power of the robot. That's what it's supposed to do. Unfortunately, every time that I've done this, it just immediately breaks the internal mechanism. I was screwing around with this pretty much all afternoon yesterday. You can see here, pretty obvious what was going wrong. There's a gear that connects the motor to everything else, all the other mechanisms and gears in there. It's flying off of the motor itself. Everything else just seizes up eventually. Like, it'll make one rotation and then just break. I don't know. I've had it apart 7 or 8 times, and I could kind of get it to work. So let's see how it works right now. The idea is that the little finger will press up against this button here, rotate things around, and then this part lifts up a bit so that you can grab onto it and get it to a higher height. And then, yeah, we can try to pour a drink. So we'll see how this goes. This is another point of failure. I'm surprised it's actually doing all this part. This is usually what has been breaking, but yeah, this, if it's gripped on here too tight, it won't rotate anymore, so that thing is starting to move now. Yeah. You gotta line up the hole just right. Oh, well, you know, that's the idea anyway. Okay. And yeah, it's just water. Nobody wants Pepsi. But when it does work, it's pretty cool. Like, seriously, I think this is great. But I mean, there's so many issues with this, like all of the gears and stuff inside there. You don't want any spills getting down in there because it's going to ruin it. You can't really wash it very well either. So it's another reason I had water going instead of Pepsi, because this gets insanely sticky and gross because stuff is going to spill. Plus, it's also got some problems just gripping onto, well, anything, even just like a 12-ounce can here. I'm sure that's just due to age in this case, but yeah, it will not hold that. So it was another reason that I used one that wasn't full. Whatever though, still kind of feels like the future. I think this is great in theory, especially for A toy robot from 1985. I mean, expensive toy, but still, it's pretty awesome for what it is, right? Yeah, that's about it for the Omnibot 2000 here. And for as many toy robots as Tomy made, all with their own charms, the 2000 comes the closest to my own personal idea of what a home robot should be. Although admittedly the concept is more endearing than the actual results in terms of any real usefulness or functionality, at the end of the day it's still a plasticky toy from the mid-1980s, just one that happens to conjure up visions of science fiction becoming reality. I also wonder how much patience a kid would actually have for this back in the day, especially with the fiddly nature of drink pouring and cassette programming. As this article pointed out, it may be advertised as a toy for 9-year-olds, but after watching it in operation, one gets the impression it'd be most popular for a kid of about 35. And yeah, according to this 37-year-old, sounds about right. Especially almost 4 decades later, the Omnibot 2000 is just not the kind of offline gadget you see anymore. You just know it'd rely on a mobile app and servers if it was released now. Or it'd have a camera capturing your home or some AI assistant listening in at all times or whatever. So, in that sense, using this today makes me appreciate 80s robots even more. Although I've gotta admit that it'd be kinda neat to see an Omnibot with a modern AI chatbot inside, just so it could talk back, you know? And it's no surprise that people have added all kinds of smarts to these bots over the years, from motion sensors to single board computers and more. Not to mention all the upgrades and replacement parts, available as 3D printable files or handmade pieces, with folks like Randy Rain doing a great job documenting the repair process and making replacement parts. As for Tomy, they're actually still making Omnibots of a sort. Currently with the Soccerborg, little RC bots that feature Omnibot branding on the packaging. But that's about it. Their original line of state-of-the-fun Omnibots died out in the late 80s along with the toy robot boom. And this 2000 model in particular is still thoroughly stuck in the 80s with its cassette tapes, incandescent light bulb eyes, and lengthy radio antennas. It's an unmistakable product of its time, and I honestly wouldn't have it any other way.
And if you happen to possess an Omnibot back in the day, please share your memories in the comments section, or any other kind of vintage robot experiences you have had, for better or worse. And as always, thank you for watching LGR.